My father was diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer last year. The doctors gave him 6 months, and true to their word, he fought for exactly that long before the disease finally took him. During those 6 months, my life completely fell apart, and then somehow put itself back together in ways I never could have imagined. Dad and I had always been close. He raised me as a single parent after Mom died when I was 7. He never remarried, said I was all he needed in life. So when he got sick, there was never any question about who would take care of him. I immediately took a leave of absence from my job as an engineer at a mid-sized firm and moved back into my childhood home to be his caretaker. My wife, Melissa, wasn't exactly thrilled about this arrangement. We'd been married for 5 years, no kids yet. She complained that I was abandoning our life together and that there were nursing homes for this sort of thing. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. This was my father we were talking about, the man who sacrificed everything to give me a good life. It's just for a few months, I told her. Dad needs me now. At first, she reluctantly agreed to visit on weekends while staying in our apartment in the city during the week for her job. But as Dad got sicker and required more care, the weekends became more stressful. Melissa would complain about the smell of the medical equipment, how depressing the house was, how I wasn't paying enough attention to her needs. 3 months in, she stopped coming altogether. For months in, she called to tell me she'd found someone else and wanted a divorce. I was devastated but too exhausted from the round-the-clock caregiving to even properly process it. Between administering Dad's medications, helping him to the bathroom, cooking meals he could barely eat, and trying to keep his spirits up, I didn't have the emotional bandwidth to fight for my marriage. If that's what you want, I said hollowly into the phone, you can have the apartment. I don't care anymore. The next few months were a blur of hospital visits, hospice nurses, and watching my father, once so strong and vital, slowly fade away. Despite the circumstances, these months brought us closer than we'd ever been. During his lucid moments, Dad and I talked about everything, his life, my childhood, his regrets, his proudest moments. He told me stories about my mother I'd never heard before. You're a good son, he'd tell me, gripping my hand with surprising strength for someone so ill. Better than I deserved. I'd shake my head. I'm just returning the favor. What I didn't know was that Dad had been watching and taking notes on everything that had happened with Melissa. And he had plans that would change everything after he was gone. Dad passed away peacefully in his sleep one Tuesday morning in October. I was holding his hand when he took his last breath. Despite the grief, there was a sense of relief that his suffering was finally over. The funeral was small, just a few of Dad's old friends, some colleagues from his construction company, and me. Melissa didn't attend, not that I expected her to. By then, our divorce was nearly finalized. She'd moved in with her new boyfriend, some hotshot real estate agent she met at a work function. According to the mutual friends we once shared, she'd been telling everyone that I had abandoned her to care for my perfectly capable father who was manipulating me for attention. The betrayal stung, but I was too numb to really care what she said about me. 2 weeks after the funeral, I met with Dad's lawyer, Mr. Richardson. He was a gruff old man who'd been Dad's friend for decades. I expected the meeting to be straightforward. Dad had a modest house, some savings, and his small construction business that had been struggling in recent years. I figured I'd inherit whatever was left after his medical bills were paid. Your father asked me to show you this before we go over the will, Mr. Richardson said, sliding a folder across his desk. Inside was a detailed financial statement that made my jaw drop. Turns out, Dad's small construction business had quietly become a major contractor for several luxury developments in the surrounding counties. The struggling company I thought he ran was just one subsidiary of a much larger operation he'd built over the years. Dad had always lived modestly, driving the same old truck and living in the same house where I grew up. I had no idea he had amassed such wealth. Your father was worth approximately $7.4 million at the time of his death, Mr. Richardson said matter-of-factly. And he's left everything to you. I couldn't speak. Through tears, I looked at the detailed portfolio, commercial properties, investments, cash reserves. Dad had built an empire while living like a regular blue-collar worker. When I finally found my voice, all I could ask was, why didn't he tell me? He said he wanted you to make your own way, the lawyer explained. He was immensely proud that you became an engineer on your own merits, not because you thought you had a safety net. Mr. Richardson then handed me a sealed envelope. He asked me to give you this privately. Inside was a handwritten letter from Dad. Dear son, if you're reading this, I'm gone. I'm sorry I kept the business success from you, but I wanted you to become your own man, and you did. I couldn't be prouder. I've watched how you cared for me these last months, sacrificing everything without complaint. I've also seen how your wife abandoned you when things got tough. Son, that's not what marriage is supposed to be. Your mother would never have done that to me. The money is yours now. Use it wisely. Build something meaningful. And remember, the difficult times show us who truly loves us and who just loves what we can provide. All my love, Dad. I folded the letter carefully and put it in my pocket. That night, I sat alone in Dad's house, my house now, and finally allowed myself to grieve properly, both for my father and my failed marriage. The next morning, my phone rang. It was Melissa. I heard about the inheritance. Melissa said without preamble. No condolences, no asking how I was doing. Just straight to the point. News travels fast, I replied dryly. Less than 24 hours had passed since I'd learned about it myself. Look, I've been thinking. Her voice softened in that way I once found endearing. Maybe we rushed into this divorce thing. We were both under so much stress with your dad being sick. I almost laughed. Were we? I remember only one of us actually dealing with that stress. That's not fair, she protested. You shut me out. You moved back to your dad's house without even discussing it with me. What was I supposed to do? Stand by your husband? For better or worse, in sickness and in health. Wasn't that what we promised each other? Silence hung between us for a moment before she switched tactics. I miss you, you know. Things with Derek, they're not what I thought they would be. He's not you. Now I did laugh. Incredible. Absolutely incredible. What's that supposed to mean? It means that 4 months ago you told me you'd found your soulmate. That Derek understood you in ways I never could. That I was too focused on my daddy issues to be a good husband. I was emotional. I wasn't thinking clearly, she said. People make mistakes. Don't they deserve second chances? I thought about my father, about the letter in my pocket, about the months I spent watching him waste away while my wife built a new life with another man. You know what's funny, Melissa? If you had called to genuinely apologize at any point before today, I might have considered reconciliation. I loved you, but you didn't call until you heard about the money. That's not true, she insisted. I've been wanting to call for weeks. The inheritance news just gave me the courage to finally do it. Courage. That's an interesting word choice. Can we just meet for coffee? Talk face to face? I think we both said things we didn't mean. I closed my eyes, remembering Dad's words. The difficult times show us who truly loves us and who just loves what we can provide. No, I don't think so, I said finally. The divorce is almost final. Let's keep it that way. You're being ridiculous, her voice hardened. You're clearly still emotional about your father. You're not thinking straight. Actually, I'm thinking more clearly than I have in years. She was quiet for a moment. You know that as your wife, I'm entitled to half of everything, including inheritances received during our marriage. My lawyer will make sure of it. And there it was. The real Melissa, showing herself again. You might want to check with your lawyer about inheritance laws in this state, I said calmly. And while you're at it, ask about the implications of abandonment and infidelity on divorce settlements. I heard her sharp intake of breath before continuing. The papers are being delivered to you tomorrow. Sign them, and we'll both move on with our lives. You'll regret this, she hissed. No, I said with certainty. I won't. After hanging up, I sat in Dad's old armchair, feeling lighter than I had in months. The next day, I submitted my resignation at the engineering firm and began taking a crash course in construction management from Dad's trusted employees. 6 months later, I expanded the business into environmental sustainability projects, something Dad had been considering before he got sick. As for Melissa, she did try to contest the divorce settlement, but Mr. Richardson had prepared everything meticulously. She walked away with exactly what she brought into the marriage, nothing more, nothing less. Sometimes I think about what Dad would say if he could see me now. I think he'd be proud not of the business success, but of the fact that I finally understood what he tried to teach me all along. True wealth isn't in a bank account. It's in knowing who stands beside you when life gets hard. And that, Reddit, is how my father's death taught me the true value of both money and love.